way, and that means that east is this way and west is this way. So Luke pointed out to me that from his observations, or at least at this time of year, the sun's coming up somewhere over there and it's setting right over there. So we're right about at the equinox. Further into the winter solstice, those things cheat more to the north. And forgive me for anybody who already knows all of this stuff, but I'm just doing a quick review of that. So that means that maybe in the winter time, it's going to rise a little bit further to the north. It's going to track a little bit lower in the sky and set maybe a little further to the north in the west, which means that aside from what filters through the branches, we're not getting, where I'm standing right here isn't getting a whole lot of sun in the winter, and even in this equinox time, it's still kind of in these trees. I'm actually getting a little bit chilly, so when I go to my car, I'm going to get a sweatshirt. So, and then further back, as you can imagine, the house is having some sun in here. We've got this opening that was caused by the development of the house, but it's not very big. As it gets further towards the summer, the sun's going to rise further to the north. Excuse me. I was saying north earlier. I meant further to the south. In the wintertime, things rise and set further to the south, closer to the equator, and then in the summertime, further back to the north. So, and the sun's going to track higher in the sky. So maybe that window is a little bit more. We were talking about this garden bed here that they added a bunch of compost to it. And right in here, it's like, all right, well, maybe we're going to get 10:30, 11 o'clock sun in the middle of the summer, tracking right overhead. It's going to maybe rise back there, come into this window, stay up overhead, and then it's going to go back there. And by 2 o'clock, maybe 2:30, if we're lucky, this little area is going to get sun. So it's still not a lot of sun, even in the middle of the summer. Again, great if you don't want a bunch of sun on your house. Probably stays pretty cool up here. And that's nice. We have more days that are appropriate for cooling because it's hotter here than in other parts of the world where we're like, hey, how can we get the most sun? We've got 5 months of winter, basically, but how can we get as much sun? But we started talking as soon as I got here about, well, where are we going to do this growing? And what are the types of things that are going to do well in a more shady environment? They have a bunch of mature trees or semi-mature trees within this landscape, and I was mentioning to them that it's a possibility to have someone that would need to be interviewed that might be willing to cut timber for the timber because having tree work done can be very expensive. So if you're wanting to take one tree out, that might cost you $1,000, especially if it's a big tree or upwards of that much money. But if you could sell enough of the trees to make it worthwhile for someone to come in, thin out some of this canopy, not do a tremendous amount of damage, and take decent poplar logs that are straight and tall and a few oaks out of here, maybe they could get away with it. It's on the cusp, but perhaps. And it might not be worth the damage to them or the loss of those beautiful trees, but as they continue to investigate what they want here, that will be a consideration. So we talked about that. You both were saying that you are wanting to do some annual gardening, you're wanting to have perennial polycultures. For those of you who don't understand or know what that means, just sort of the integration of a variety of perennial things that work together or can live in harmony in some way to produce things with a little bit less of that annual input. Maybe it's wanting some amendments and some weeding, maybe, but primarily it's sort of behaving like the forest, which each part of the forest fills in some different kind of niche. They're also, I noticed that they're dealing with a variety of invasives, which is very typical. We've got a lot of multiflora rose that I'm seeing down there. On this nose that's sticking out here, a little bit less as we move over into that bowl, and less over on that side. So wherever it came from and started, it's kind of gotten a hold here, and with being unchecked, it will continue to spread. So although it's sort of pretty and smells good, it's non-native, and it will crowd out lots of the native things and makes it very difficult to travel around in the woods. So I was recommending to them that at this point, before they experiment with herbicides, etc., to really rid themselves of it, which I'm not a huge proponent of. I did mention that a combination of vinegar and boric acid will kill things, and you could experiment with that, cutting something down and putting some on the stump. Luke pointed out, oh, we could cut this right when it's going to flower, where it's putting all of its energy into flowering, or even during flowering as it's moving towards seeding, when the most amount of energy is out of the roots and up at the top of the plant, cut them then. That's going to put the most damage on those plants. So they have their work cut out for them if they want to kind of